All right. Ready to begin again. Hope everybody has had a brief break and ready to go. As I mentioned at the beginning of this lecture, people who read my first book, Initiation in the Aeon of the Child, find the 5th chapter attributed to the Hebrew letter Zadi. And they will find that I'm writing about the doctrine of the Messiah and the tarot card, the star, and specifically exactly why Zadi cannot represent the star in this eon. Now, first of all, it should not surprise us that the symbolism of the star should be so directly involved in a doctrinal mystery of the new eon. The book of the law says, every man and every woman is a star. And this is a cornerstone of Thelemic revelation. Every man and every woman is a star. When he dictated the book of the law, the preterhuman intelligence Aiwass used the Egyptian word habas, or cobs as we pronounce it, and he made Crowley understand that this word meant star. In actual fact, it is an ancient Egyptian word, which does mean exactly that, star. The word cobs used by Aiwass in the book of the law is not the same word that we find in the phrase cobs unpicked, which we inherited from the Golden Dawn, which Crowley knew from his days in his tenure with the Golden Dawn. No, that word in Egyptian was hebes, which means light or lamp. It's an entirely different word, despite its similarity in sound. Our word cobs is derived from the ancient Egyptian word kabas, starry sky. Cobs is one star in the body of Nuit. Kabas, the starry sky. Crowley most certainly did not know this word or its etymology, but Aiwass did know it, that this is a word of ancient Egyptian origin. If I were looking for objective proof of the reality of Aiwass and the Book of the Law, I would have to look no further than here. Crowley did not know Egyptian, but Aiwass did, and this word is very, very old. Furthermore, we find that the word star in Arabic, Najima, has a value of 93. It's spelled Nun Jin Mim, 50 plus 3 plus 40, for a total of 93. And as all Thelemites are perfectly aware, the numerical value of the Greek words Thelema and agape, which means love, both add up to 93. It's a very important number for Thelemites. I think that's pretty remarkable and worthy of investigation. But moving on with our attempt to unfold this mystery, let's take a good look at Zadi and its symbolism. Since ancient times, the birth of an eminent person has been identified with the rising of a star. This is not only a common tradition among the Jews, but all over the Near East. The coming of the Messiah has always been associated with the star. The Old Testament paradigm is found in the book of Numbers. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not soon. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. For those of you who are not acquainted with the Old Testament, Jacob and Israel refers to the same person, the second son of Isaac and the grandson of Abraham. He was named Jacob at birth, but was given the name Israel after he had a wrestling match with an angel of God. His 12 sons became the leaders of the 12 tribes, and thus he is considered the patriarch of Judaism and the entire nation, which began to call themselves Israelites. The relationship of the star with the Messiah is an example of the star as an emblem of hope. According to the Zohar, a star rising out of the east and swallowing up 7 stars in the north would herald the coming of Messiah. A fixed star would appear in the middle of the firmament and would be visible for 70 days. It would have 70 rays and would be surrounded by 70 other stars. In the apocryphal Testament of Levi, verse 3, it is written of the star of Messiah, "And his star shall arise in heaven as of a king, lighting up the light of knowledge as the sun in the day, and he shall be magnified in the world." Likewise, the apocryphal Testament of Judah in verse 24 says, quote, "And after these things shall a star arise to you from Jacob in peace." In the New Testament Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2, verse 2, it is recounted that Magi from the east appeared in Jerusalem searching for the new Messiah, saying, "For we have beheld his star in the east and have come to worship him." It's further written in verses 9, 10 of Matthew that when the Magi left Jerusalem for Bethlehem to find this newly born child, it is written in Matthew, "And behold, the star which they saw in the east went before them, until having arrived it stood over where the young child was. Having now seen the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy." Now, alchemists who drew heavily upon the scriptures and interpreted them intuitively rather than literally signified the crown of the work, the quintessence or fifth essence, by an emblem of an 8-pointed star. This is the steganographic emblem for Sol Ammoniacum, or the salt of harmony. Alchemists also identified this star with the Christian Messiah. In alchemy, the dark, depressing stage of the work is said to end with the appearance of a, quote, starry aspect, which is likened to the night sky that told shepherds and kings that a child was born in Bethlehem. It is the same emblem as the star of the Spirit, which crowns the 4 elements, which is drawn with an enclosing circle to distinguish that characteristic. If there was ever any doubt that the 8-pointed star of Sol Harmoniacum and the 8-pointed star of Spirit was identified with Jesus Christ, this Christian graffiti from Ephesus should remove that doubt. Here you can see how the word for fish, ichthus, is written in a circular fashion, thereby forming a circle surrounding an 8-pointed star. Thusly, each individual letter writing the word fish, which forms the 8-pointed star, the star of Sol Ammoniacum, surrounded by a circle, forming the symbol for spirit. One of the older representations of the tarot card, the star, extant, is that painted by Bonifacio Bimbo in the 15th century. The emblem of the star is in every way identical to the alchemical emblem of Sol Ammoniacum. Another card of the star from the 15th century depicts a crowned woman holding the identical emblem. The images associated with the zodiacal sign of Aquarius that adorn all later representations of the star card are not present. These illustrations tell us that in the earliest stages, the single most important component of this tarot card is the emblem of the star, which signified hope. As I mentioned earlier, the star of hope is none other than the star of the Messiah. Now here's a significant point. The tarot card of the star in the tarot of Thelema still signifies the Messiah. This Messiah is the Christ, the Anointed One. It is written in Liber Trigrammaton, the Master flamed forth as a star and set a guard of water in every abyss. By the phrase every abyss, we are to understand the 5 paths that intersect the abyss that link the supernals with the lower Sephiroth. A guard of water is placed in each path. Why water? The answer is found in the Book of Wise. Now and again travelers cross the desert. They come from the great sea, and to the great sea they go. As they go, they spill water. One day they will irrigate the desert till it flower. See? 5 footprints of a camel. V, 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 V. I want you to turn your attention to this verse from Liber 7, chapter 4. Also I read in a great book. On ancient skin was written in letters of gold, verbum fit verbum, also vitriol, and the Hierophant's name, VVVVV. All this wheeled in fire, in star fire, rare and far and utterly lonely, even as thou and I, O desolate soul, my God. Note that these verses contain 8 occurrences of the letter V written in the uppercase, verbum, verbum, vitriol, and VVVVV. These letters are the letters that wheel in starfire to form the star of the Messiah, the star of 8 points. We learn from a careful readings of the holy books of Thelema that the Messiah, or the Anointed One, was sent to earth as a messenger. It is written in Liber 10, verse 2 through 4. I who comprehend in myself all the vast and the minute, all the bright and the dark, have mitigated the brilliance of mine unutterable splendor, sending forth VVVVV as a ray of my light, as a messenger unto that small dark orb. Then VVVVV taketh up the word and saith, Men and women of the earth, to you am I come from the ages beyond the ages, from the space beyond your vision, and I bring to you these words. From the ages beyond the ages, and from the space beyond our vision. Note that in the phrase ages beyond the ages, both A's are written in uppercase, which in a Class A document of the AA tells us that this is significant. In this case, they signify AA. The voice of the Lord of the Aeon speaking in verse 2 of Liber 10 describes him as a ray of my light. That ray of light, that flying spark of light, is he who speaks from the invisible throne. We've now come to the essential part of our discussion, and that is the meaning of the Messiah in the doctrines of Thelema. What does the Messiah signify? How does it differ from the doctrines of the old Aeon? Who is that Messiah? First, let us consider the basic premise of the Messiah in the old Aeon, which is succinctly captured in the formula of the 5-lettered name, the Pentagrammaton. For over 2,000 years, man had perceived his relationship with God in terms of a disjunctive doctrine that placed God above and outside man. Man was considered a lowly, sinful creature that could only be lifted in spiritual stature by the descent of a redeeming spirit bestowed by the grace of God. The zenith of this dogma is found after the rise of Christianity, and nowhere is it more plainly expressed in the Apostle Paul's account of the miracle of Pentecost, where the Holy Ghost descended and danced like cloven flames upon the heads of the believers. In the Western Kabbalistic tradition, this has its parallel in the formula of Pentagrammaton, Yod, He, Shin, Vav, He, where the 4 letters of Yahweh, Yod, He, Vav, He, indicating the blind elements, are crowned by the letter Shin, the Holy Spirit, or Ruah Elohim, descending into the 4 inferior elements and redeeming them. The whole emblem of the pentagram is the emblem and symbol of man. The Hebrew name Yaheshua, that it spells, is Jesus, the Redeemer. This doctrine originated with Johann Reuchlin, who lived from 1455 to 1522, and who published 2 books in Latin on the subject of Kabbalah, De Verbo Mirifico, on the wonder-working name, in 1494, and De Arte Kabbalistica, on the art of the Kabbalah, in 1517. In the first work, Reuchlin taught that the wonder-working name was not the Tetragrammaton Yahweh, but the Pentagrammaton Yaheshua, the Hebrew form of the name Jesus. Reuchlin considered the time after the birth of Jesus to be the period of grace and redemption. To inaugurate the epoch, Reuchlin believed that the Messiah revealed himself in the name of 5 letters, Yod He Shin Vav He, Jesus, thereby making pronounceable the unpronounceable name of God, Yod He Vav He. Reuchlin's Kabbalistic work was to have such a far-reaching impact that it proved to be the cornerstone of the Western magical tradition. The doctrine of the Pentagrammaton, which he promulgated, remained virtually unchanged until the fall of the Aeon of Osiris. Although the formula of this Pentagrammaton has not been abrogated, the insights of the new Aeon have brought a new outlook on its interpretation. The Holy Spirit does not descend from above and redeem man. There is no help or hope in any but man. The Shin of Pentagrammaton signifies the spark of Godhead, the core of every star, independent of the grace of any god. For us, it is the Spirit crowning the 4 elements, manifesting the 5th power of the Sphinx, the power to go. Since the formula of Nox is the supreme formula of the Aeon of the Child, it demands that we reconsider the doctrine of the Pentagrammaton, which is bound inexorably with the formula LVX, or light. In Initiation in the Aeon of the Child, the Inward Journey, I explained that the formula of LVX was not abrogated, but superseded. This is only to be expected. It would be a contradiction to consider that the 5-lettered name, Yod He Shin Vav He, Jesus, to remain as a glyph for the attainment of Thelemites, when Jesus is one of the gods of men, cursed in the 3rd chapter of the Book of the Law. The view of redemption held by the ministers of the old Aeon signified the coronation of the 4 elements in the city of the sun. Our definition of redemption is the transfiguration of Virgin to Mother and her subsequent coronation in the city of night, the holy mountain Zion, the city of the pyramids. Still, the pyramid remains the figure of man, and the transformation of mankind is the ultimate aim of initiation. Also, the 5-pointed star is a symbol sanctified in the 1st chapter of the Book of the Law, with the addition of a red circle in the middle, a symbol sacred to new. This being so, should we not expect the existence of a formula expressed as a type of Pentagrammaton, superseding the LVX formula of the old Aeon, and demonstrating that of NOX, the key formula of the new Aeon? I thought so. In fact, such a Pentagrammaton does exist, and the signs of NOX, or Nox, indicate its 5 points functionally. This is a Thelemic Pentagrammaton. Yod He Lamed Vav He, the star upon the path of the great return. The total numeration of its Hebrew letters is 56. 6 and 50, the number of new. Serious students of Thelema would do well to study this in detail. Now, moving on, if you examine a good edition of Aleister Crowley's Liber Abba, or Book 4, and I recommend the edition edited by Hymenaeus Beta, which bears the imprimatur of the AA, you will discover immediately before the preliminary remarks there is a photograph. Here is that photograph exactly as it appears in the book, with the legend underneath it. This is a photograph taken in 1902 of Frater Perdurabo bathing in a spring on the lower Baltoro Glacier in the shadow of K2, the 2nd highest mountain in the world. It is not intended to be a flattering picture. In this photo, one has the sense of Perdurabo as a wanderer in the waste. And that, my friends, is precisely what it does represent. You will note that the legend beneath this photograph, there is a Greek inscription that reads simply, Kyrie Soter Cosmou. In the original edition of this book, no explanation was given and no translation was offered. In the publication edited by Frater H.B. that bears the seal of the AA, we translated it for you. It means, Hail, Savior of the universe. In the preliminary remarks that follow this image, Crowley discusses the commonality between Christ, Buddha, and Muhammad, with particular attention paid to a common event in each of their lives, and that is an omission in the history of their lives. Each of them was totally silent for many years, and then they disappeared for a time. And when they returned, they broke their silence and began to preach a new law. Crowley questions whether this is a phenomenon that can be confirmed in the lives of other great teachers in history, and thus examines the account of Moses and St. Paul. He goes on to say, quote, making every possible deduction for fable and myth, we get this one coincidence. A nobody goes away and comes back as somebody, end quote. What Crowley tells us is that all of these men, during the time of their absence from society, had a life-changing experience, a soul-changing experience. They left society simply as men. They did not return simply as men, for they bore the stamp of divine vision. They had received an anointing. And although he does not state it plainly, the photograph preceding these remarks speaks loudly. It shows us a naked, weathered climber of mountains in contemplation as he cleanses his body in the mountain stream. He is telling us that he is also in the company of these great teachers of history, these anointed few. And yet he did not proclaim that he, meaning Aleister Crowley, was the Messiah. Why not? Because he wasn't. And he was. And herein is a great mystery. Here we begin that difficult journey to which I referred at the outset of this talk, and I recalled the words of God to Moses in the shadow of Sinai. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Our journey of revelation begins with the journey of Aleister Crowley himself. You see, he had also gone into the wilderness in quest of the divine, as holy men have done for centuries. And when he returned, he spoke guardedly of a great master with whom he was in communication, who had given him a dispensation to formulate the order of AA in the form that we know it today. That great master is only known to us by the initials of his name, VVVVV. In the Book of Lies, Crowley would write the following: in VVVVV is the great work perfect. Therefore none is that pertaineth not to VVVVV. In any may he manifest, yet in one hath he chosen to manifest. And this one hath given his ring as a seal of authority to the work of the AA through the colleagues of Frater Perdurabo. End quote. Students of Thelema are familiar with the initials VVVVV. When Crowley attained to the grade of Master of the Temple of AA, he took a Latin motto with these same initials, Vi vere universum vivus vici, which means, by the force of truth, I have conquered the universe while living. For years, people have assumed that whenever they see the initials VVVVV, that they refer to Aleister Crowley. This is not always the case. VVVVV is another master entirely, the head of the AA. He is responsible for the entire development of the AA movement, and his utterances are enshrined in the sacred writings. Let me again quote to you from Liber 10, the Book of the Gate of Light. I behold a small dark orb, wheeling in an abyss of infinite space. It is minute among a myriad vast ones, dark among a myriad bright ones. I who comprehend in myself all the vast and the minute, all the bright and the dark, have mitigated the brilliance of mine unutterable splendor, sending forth VVVVV as a ray of my light, as a messenger unto that small dark orb. Then VVVVV taketh up the word and saith, Men and women of the earth, to you am I come from the ages beyond the ages, from the space beyond your vision, and I bring to you these words. But they heard him not, for they were not yet ready to receive them. These words are spoken in the person of the Lord of the Aeon, Haru Raha, who has sent forth VVVVV as a ray of his light unto the world. VVVVV manifested in the man Aleister Crowley, so that we might receive the benefit of his words. But it is fair to ask, who is VVVVV? This is a question that Crowley disliked intensely. He would not answer it. He preferred to let the holy book speak of this mystery and remain silent himself. Why? The answer might surprise you. He disliked speaking of it because he was spiritually humble. Despite all of his bravado and leg pulling that permeates much of his writing, Crowley was genuinely humble in the face of these mysteries. One need only read Liber 65 or Liber 7 carefully to see evidence of that which I speak. And the answer to this question is found in the holy books. I'm going to show you a very important clue that is written in Liber 65, chapter 3, verse 62. But as thou art the last, thou art also the next, and as the next do I reveal thee to the multitude. Now note which words are written with the initial uppercase letters in the middle of the sentence. The words thou have uppercase T. Last, uppercase L. Next, uppercase N. The, uppercase T. I have mentioned numerous times that in our holy books in Class A, even the style of a letter is significant. If a word occurs with uppercase letters where one would not normally expect to see uppercase letters, that is significant. It is telling you that the word has a special meaning, and we should pay attention to it. He is revealed to the multitude as the next. The next what? The next Messiah. Now pay close attention here. As thou art the last. The last? What can this mean? Can we find a clue? Yes, we can. As a very young man, sometime around 1898, Aleister Crowley was reading a book written by the famous mystic Arthur Edward Waite. Within the text of the book Crowley was reading, Waite hinted that he knew of a hidden church wherein the secrets of initiation were preserved and protected from the profane. Crowley wrote to Waite asking for more information. Waite sent Crowley a kind reply, suggesting that he read a book called The Cloud Upon the Sanctuary by Counselor von Eckarthausen. Crowley dutifully procured the book and began to study it. This was a pivotal moment, for this little book led Aleister Crowley to the great work. In later years, despite all of his teasing Waite for his pomposity, Crowley was always grateful to A.E. Waite and acknowledged the importance of this event upon his life. Later, when formulating the current structure of the Order of the AA, Crowley would incorporate the cloud upon the sanctuary with some very significant modifications as Liber 33, an account of AA. Now, I want you to follow me here. Listen closely and read carefully. The second section of the cloud upon the sanctuary, as originally written, reads as follows. It is necessary, my dear brothers in the Lord, to give you a clear idea of the interior church, of that illuminated community of God which is scattered throughout the world, but which is governed by one truth and united in one spirit. And then Eckarthausen tells us from whence the interior church derives that authority. This society is in the communion of those who have the most capacity for light, that is, the elect. The elect are united in truth, and their chief is the light of the world himself, Jesus Christ, the one anointed in light, the single mediator for the human race, the way, the truth, and the life. Crowley took these words and many others and incorporated them into Liber 33. This quotation appears almost exactly the same in Liber 33, but with some very significant changes. And here is the wording of Liber 33. This society is in the communion of those who have the most capacity for light. They are united in truth, and their chief is the light of the world himself, VVVVV, the one anointed in light, the single teacher for the human race, the way, the truth, and the life. Crowley removed the words the elect totally, for all men and women have the capacity for light. Every man and every woman is a star. Then, most importantly, he replaced the name Jesus Christ with that of VVVVV, calling him not the mediator between God and man, but a single teacher for the human race. And other than that, the words are identical. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Let's recapitulate and look at the comparisons. In the old Aeon, the interior church declared their chief to be Jesus Christ, the light of the world himself. In the new Aeon, the interior church proclaims their chief to be VVVVV, the light of the world himself. In the old Aeon, the one anointed in light was Jesus Christ. In the new Aeon, the one anointed in light is VVVVV. In the old Aeon, the way, the truth, and the life was Jesus Christ. In the new Aeon, the way, the truth, and the life is VVVVV. Do you see the pattern? The meaning is clear as glass. But as thou art the last, thou art also the next. And as the next, do I reveal thee to the multitude. Now here I want to caution you. If you look upon these words and make the assumption that this refers to the Jesus Christ that you know, that will be a grave error. What do we know about the historical Jesus? Nothing. This is a painting by Warner Solomon, executed in the year 1940. It's become the standard icon for how the world visualizes Jesus. It has been reproduced over 1 billion times. It has become the most beloved imagery and beloved imaginary portrait ever painted. People believe that is who Jesus was. But what about historical facts or historical images? The accounts we have, whether from the New Testament or from the Gnostic text, are so flooded with archetypal components that any hope of discerning evidence of a historical Jesus becomes hopeless. There are no images of Jesus that exist. What we do know is this. From the proliferation of written accounts we find dating from the 1st and 2nd centuries, we can reasonably deduce that a spiritual teacher who we now is known as Jesus appeared sometime around 8 years prior to the advent of the common Christian era. At that time, the classical religions had become obsolete. The collective archetypal dominance that inhabit human life had fallen into decay. The old gods of time past no longer spoke to man as they had for centuries. The cry went out across the countryside, Pan is dead. Man was rapidly being cut off from a mystical participation with his unconscious. Humankind was on the verge of a psychic collapse. The archetypal power threatened to possess everyone. The risk of this occurrence would be a reversion from consciousness. Consciousness would be swallowed up and disintegrated by the archetypal flood from the collective unconscious. This was the state of things when the figure we now know as Jesus appeared. He became the tutelary image or amulet against the power of the unconscious which threatened to engulf the world. The archetypal dominants were attracted feverishly to this human teacher at such a rate that within a few years after his appearance, he was a mythological figure of such significance that he would change the entire world. And yet, even within the closer circles of those who had actually been in contact with him, division rapidly arose over his teachings, his doctrine, and even his death. Or did he even exist at all? The immediate disciples of Jesus quarreled among themselves. Gnostic sects of all stripes argued with everyone and railed against the more mainstream Christians as being literalists. And so caught up in the life of Jesus and his secret teaching was lost. The Gnostics were in turn cursed as heretics who perverted the true teaching of Jesus. And in all this, where was the real Jesus? Who was Jesus? Did he even really exist? To the historian, the answers to these questions are lost in time. To theologians, the answer to these questions are found only in dogma that cares little for truth. But we know the answers to these questions, for they are revealed and concealed in our holy books. The practitioners of Christianity cannot perceive the truth of this. The vision in the voice gives the stunning revelation: Satan is worshipped by men under the name of Jesus. Do you grasp the significance of this? Furthermore, it makes me wonder, is the converse of that true? Is Jesus blasphemed by men under the name of Satan? Now, the point of this is simply for you to understand that Thelema did not appear in a vacuum. We are an extension of the evolution of mankind. The footprint of the AA may be seen throughout history, in many guises, in many teachings. Yes, he is the last, and he is the next. And as the next is he revealed unto the multitude. But all of you who sit tonight, or this morning, within the sound of my voice, I reveal him to you as the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. I said earlier that there is something else that touches directly upon the central mystery of the Messiah, which Crowley could not discuss, for he was bound by a certain oath. And what exactly was that oath? And what was the great secret that was guarded by Aleister Crowley? I promised that I would tell you. When an initiate of the AA receives the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel, it is the central attainment of the grade of Adeptus Minor. The candidate, as the symbolic bride, unites with the bridegroom in a holy wedding. The bridegroom is the Holy Guardian Angel. The Adeptus Minor, with all due solemnity and meditation, takes a new motto which reveals that sacred union. That motto is never revealed in the lifetime of that initiate. That is precisely why Aleister Crowley never revealed it. In his book, The Eye in the Triangle, Israel Regardie ventured a guess as to what Crowley's Adeptus Minor motto was. He suggested that it was the heart of Jesus girt with the serpent. He was wrong. It was a pretty good guess, and interestingly enough, he was on the right track. But he was guessing. The correct motto has been published now after it was discovered among the old records of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. However, this motto has been known to certain members of the AA for a very long time. That motto was Christeos Luciftius. This is also the title of the 5th chapter of my book, Initiation in the Aeon of the Child, the chapter on Zadi and Hay, and the Messiah. These words are in the angelic or Enochian language. Translated, they mean, let there be light. But as you can see, there's a bit of wordplay here. It suggests two words that would appear to be in opposition to one another, Christ and Lucifer. The inference of the word Christ brings us back to the concept of anointing. In Greek, Christos, from which we derive the word Christ, means anointed, the Messiah again. Lucifer in Latin means light bringer, but of course there's the clear suggestion of a dichotomy that we identify as God and the devil. Crowley had a sardonic sense of humor, and he certainly must have enjoyed the joke. Yet Crowley understood this on a far deeper level than that. He understood that the commonly perceived view of God was incomplete and did not represent wholeness. Carl Jung has written extensively about this and the psychological problems it causes modern mankind to attempt to worship a God that is not balanced. Prior to the advent of the new Aeon, Frater Perturbo experienced a vision in which he heard the following words. And a great mingled cry arose. No, no, no. All is changed. All is confounded. Naught is ordered. The white is stained with blood. The black is kissed of the Christ. Return. It is a new chaos that thou findest here. Chaos for thee. For us, it is the skeleton of a new truth. Note well, the white is stained with blood. That is to say, the path of light is alive with new energy, for the blood is the life. The path of light, or LVX, has not been abrogated, but it has been changed with the coming of the new Aeon. And I want you to note this very carefully. The black is kissed of the Christ. The path of darkness, or Nox, N-O-X, is embraced as an integral part of the system of attainment, for only thereby can wholeness be achieved. It is kissed of the Christ. It has received the blessing of the Christ, the Messiah. The only way to achieve wholeness is to know the upright and the averse, the two aspects of the divine that comprise the totality. As Liber Zadi says, my adepts stand upright, their heads above the heavens, their feet below the hells. Now that's an interesting coincidence, isn't it? That such a quote would be found in a book bearing the Hebrew letter Zadi? Do you really think that's a coincidence? I do not. In this Christ-Lucifer play on words, we also see a hidden reference to the Kabbalistic equivalence of these two words in Hebrew. Mashiach, that is Messiah, and Nahash, serpent. Both words, if we add the numeric values of their letters, add to 358. This equivalence of numerical value tells us that there is a hidden commonality between these apparently diverse words. We see part of this commonality in the bonding of the upright and averse, which restores wholeness to the psyche of mankind. Now, there are many more Kabbalistic mysteries contained in these two words, but examining those in detail would take us far from the basic subject of this talk. And you will find an analysis of these in the 5th chapter of my book, Initiation in the Aeon of the Child. Now, in the final portion of my discussion of Messiah, I want to briefly examine the work of the Messiah in the new Aeon. How does it differ from the old Aeon? The traditional views of the human interaction with the Messiah figure have hitherto been one of strict dualism. The Messiah performed a work for mankind that mankind was incapable of performing for themselves. You see, this was part of the archetypal pattern. Man yearned for interaction with God, but the perceived relationship between the human and the divine seemed so disparate that a mediator was required in order to achieve it. The role of the high priest mediated between the worshiper and the Almighty. The Judaic priesthood of Melchizedek is a perfect example. Melchizedek was a contemporary of Abraham, who was called a priest of God Most High, and the priesthood that functioned in his name served to mediate between the people and God. It was King David himself in the Psalms who referred to the future Messiah as a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Modern Roman Catholics consider their priesthood to be in the tradition of Melchizedek, a view that is bitterly contested by Protestants. Most Protestants view Jesus Christ as the sole mediator between God and man, himself a high priest after the order of Melchizedek, performing for man the work of redemption. Now, what does redemption mean? It means to buy back. to recover ownership by paying a required sum. In the Old Testament, redemption signified the redemption by kinship. The primary word used there in Hebrew is gawel. The next of kin would purchase back the property of a deceased relative or marry his widow and fulfill the requirement of a kinsman. The word redemption is connected to bondage or imprisonment. Another of the words so used in the Old Testament is podah. It means literally to pay ransom. The Christian doctrine of the Redeemer is based on the premise that Jesus Christ paid the full price for the redemption of souls by his death in order to satisfy the requirement imposed by Jehovah. And what was that requirement? It was the bloody sacrifice as a ransom of sin. Yahweh holds the souls of his believers ransom, and that ransom must be paid with the sacrifice of blood. Our view is that this doctrine is an abomination, plain and simple. We reject the bloody sacrifice as an appeasement to a bloody God. On the other hand, we speak of redemption. Well, how is that? In Liber Vel Magi, it's written, with the coin redeemeth he. Now this refers to the doctrine that I have termed the path of the great return. In the system of the AA, the neophyte grade corresponds to the 10th Sephir of Malkuth on the Tree of Life. This also corresponds to the final letter He of Tetragrammaton Yahweh, Yod-Heh-Vav. Furthermore, the magical weapon of the pentacle, the coin, is also attributed to Malkuth. The goal is the restoration of He Final, the daughter of the throne of the mother, to the throne of the mother Binah, the initial He of Yod-Heh-Vav. The coin of Malkuth thus redeems the daughter who is saved from isolation from the heavenly Eden by being restored to her rightful place as the mother. This is the work of redemption brought to us by the Messiah. But there is a great distinction between our Messiah and any other. The appearance of our Messiah was not intended to evoke the exoteric worship of men or to be openly known as the Anointed One. His mission was to bring to man the word that would intoxicate the inmost, not the outermost. Nor shall it be spoken in the marketplace that I am come who should come, but thy coming shall be the one word. Now this is the voice of Aleister Crowley speaking to VVVVV. He is acknowledging that by his work he will not be acknowledged by men as a redeemer, but that the coming of the Messiah VVVVV would be manifest in the one word, which is Thelema. I gave a lecture on Liber 65, chapter 1, and then I spoke about how Adonai spoke to VVVVV and said, let us take our delight in the multitude of men. Let us shape unto ourselves a boat of mother of pearl from them, that we may ride upon the river of Amrit. In order for Adonai in VVVVV to ride upon this river of Amrit, VVVVV must be incarnate in the flesh. Thus Adonai tells us that they will make a boat from them, that is, from the flesh of mankind. In this case, it was Aleister Crowley. The boat is made from mother of pearl, which is attributed to Hogmah and represents a creative act of will. So in one sense, the river here signifies the river of life, bound eternally to the wheel of samsara, the wheel of necessity. But by an act of will, the Messiah may reincarnate and ride upon this eternal river. Let's continue with verses 34 and 38. Thou seest yon petal of amaranth blown by the wind from the low sweet brows of Hathor. The Magister saw it and rejoiced in the beauty of it. Listen, from a certain world came an infinite wail. That falling petal seemed to the little ones a wave to engulf their continent. So they will reproach thy servant, saying, who hath set thee to save us? He will be sore distressed. Adonai is calling the attention of VVVVV to a single soft petal of amaranth floating on the breeze. The falling petal of Amaranth represented the coming of VVVVV as the Messiah of the new Aeon. He came softly, gently, and secretly to the earth, symbolically born from the brows of Hathor, the house of Horus, as a flower of eternity and an emissary of the holy ones. VVVVV then hears the voice of Adonai again, who says, "Listen." And from a certain world is heard a wail, a cry of anguish. This certain world is the world of Aeon, the world of mankind, the old gray land. The Messiah came gently to earth, and yet his coming accompanied the birth pangs of a new Aeon. The little ones of the old Aeon experienced the falling of that soft petal of Amaranth like a tidal wave that would engulf their entire continent. In Liber 7, chapter 4, verse 44, speaking of him, it says, "This is the voice which shook the earth." The stability of the old Aeon was shattered and began to crumble immediately. We know this also from Liber 65, chapter 5, verses 31 through 32. The stable was shaken, and the unstable became still. They that beheld it cried with a formidable affright, "The end of things is come upon us." And it was even so. And so let us return to Liber 65, chapter 1, verses 37 and 38. "So they will reproach thy servant, saying, Who has set thee to save us? He will be sore distressed." We see the people of the old gray land, the followers of the doctrine of the old Aeon, reproach the servant Aleister Crowley, as every avatar who preceded him. We heard them say, "Why should we listen to you? Who made you the Savior?" And it depressed him. Now, VVVVV experienced no distress over this. He is beyond the frailty of such human emotions. But Aleister Crowley, the man, cared deeply about the spiritual development of mankind. And being branded the wickedest man in the world and a Satanist and all the rest of the nonsense, it distressed him. But later in Liber 65, chapter 5, and verses 2 through 4, the mission of VVVVV is once again described with another metaphor. And Aleister Crowley, the man, receives a direct commandment. This is the voice of VVVVV addressing the Lord Adonai, the Holy One. "Is not the starry heaven shaken as a leaf at the tremulous rapture of your love? Am not I the flying spark of light whirled away by the great wind of your perfection? Yea," cried the Holy One, "and from thy spark will I, the Lord, kindle a great light. I will burn through the gray city in the old and desolate land. I will cleanse it from its great impurity. And thou, O prophet, shalt see these things, and shalt heed them not." The starry heaven was shaken as a leaf. The symbolism of the falling amaranth petal is here replaced by a flying spark of light, hurled away by the great wind of the Lord's perfection. And Adonai the Lord told VVVVV that from that small spark, a great light would be kindled, burning through the world of the old Aeon, cleansing it from its great impurity. Then Crowley is addressed as prophet of the new Aeon, and Adonai gives him a command. This is not a prophecy, it was a command. "And thou, O prophet, shalt see these things, and thou shalt heed them not." In other words, you will see these things, you will experience these things, including the reproach and rejection of the old world, and thou shalt heed them not. I believe he did his best to follow that injunction. It must not have been easy. I don't think any of us can imagine what he often had to endure. But he held fast to his motto, Perdurabo, "I will endure unto the end." And he obeyed the commandments of the supreme chiefs as best he could. He kept the spark alive amidst a whirlwind of hatred and venom. And we, all of us who accept the law of Thelema, are part of that great light which will burn through the gray city in the old and desolate land, cleansing it from its great impurity. The messenger of the Lord who delivered the word into the world was his servant Perdurabo, Aleister Crowley. Redemption in this new Aeon is accomplished by ourselves. There is no God but man. The price is paid with our own blood, not by vicarious atonement and faith in another, within the crucible of each individual heart, this coin must be redeemed by self-sustained effort. The robe of neophyte of AA is therefore adorned with the descending red triangle that is a heart of blood, affirming commitment to the great work and the ultimate outpouring of that blood into the cup of Babylon. Listen, if you will, to the words of the Messiah. First, there are many and diverse conditions of life upon this earth. In all of these, there is some seed of sorrow. Who can escape from sickness and from old age and from death? We are come to save our fellows from these things. For there is a life intense with knowledge and extreme bliss, which is untouched by any of them. Children of earth, rejoice, rejoice exceedingly, for your salvation is at hand. Rejoice indeed, for you have been freed from the chains of slavery to a God who demanded a sacrifice of blood, a God who oppressed his chosen people while demanding utter obedience for centuries with no return except to suffer mass murder at the hands of monsters. Gods who demand the subjugation and enslavement of women, forcing them to wear the veil of modesty, that is but the veil of sorrow and the pall of death. A God who so delighted in shedding the blood of the firstborn that he murdered his own firstborn son, and other slave gods around the world who dance gleefully upon the backs of their helpless faithful, who slog on blindly lifetime after lifetime in the face of starvation and ignorance. Ladies and gentlemen, your salvation does not depend on grace of any god outside yourself, but rather on the godly grace you attain within. My late friend James Wasserman summed it up clearly when he wrote, "The salvation of humanity needs to be achieved one person, one mind, one soul at a time, that only by rooting out the evil and ignorance within oneself is it truly possible to root out evil and ignorance in the world." There is so much I would love to share with you concerning this subject, but time does not permit. The scope of this doctrine is so broad and so sweeping that it would take many more hours to probe them at great depth. I have studied these mysteries for over 4 decades, and they still inspire me and leave me in awe. Their scope and power is undeniable, for I have had the opportunity to see how these are more than just words. I have witnessed the transformation of people who seal these words up in their blood. I stand in awe of Aleister Crowley, a great intellect, a great teacher, who could have openly proclaimed himself to be the new Messiah, and attempt to establish a new religious movement in his own name. And yet he did not do this. He shunned it. Remember what was written in the Holy Book? "Nor shall it be spoken in the markets that I am come who should come, but thy coming shall be the one word. Thou shalt manifest thyself in the unmanifest. In the secret places men shall meet with thee, and thou shalt overcome them." These are the words of Crowley, the humble aspirant. He's saying, it will not be said openly that I am the one who should come. In other words, I will not be declared Messiah, even though I'm prophet of the new Aeon. He addresses his master VVVVV and says to him, "Thou shalt manifest thyself in the unmanifest." Why? Where is this unmanifest place to which he refers? The word manifest is derived from the Latin manifestus, which means gripped with the hand. A thing unmanifest is something that cannot be touched by your hand. And so where is this unmanifest place where the Messiah will manifest? It is in your soul, in the secret place where you stand alone in silence. It is said, "In the secret places men shall meet with thee, and thou shalt overcome them." As I told you at the outset of this talk, I've had the distinct honor to serve the Great Order for over 4 decades. I am one who can say, with all due humility, in quoting Liber 65, the book of the heart girt with the serpent, "The Lord Adonai delighteth in me, and I bear the cup of his gladness unto the weary ones of the old gray land." And this, my friends, is that which I try to do today, for I am but one who bears his cup. For myself and my beloved wife Gwen, this verse from Liber 65 has become a joyous reality. We have been permitted to carry that cup of his gladness from New York to Los Angeles, from Florida to Canada, from Australia to Serbia, from Denmark to Norway, from London to Rome, from Tokyo to Hong Kong, and many other places. And now, as one who acts as his standard bearer, I would have you hear these words in their entirety and take heed. And the Lord Adonai delighteth in me, and I bear the cup of his gladness unto the weary ones of the old grey land. They that drink thereof are smitten of disease. The abomination hath laid hold upon them, and their torment is like the thick black smoke of the evil abode. But the chosen ones drank thereof, and became even as my Lord, my beautiful, my desirable one. There is no wine like unto this wine. This new wine, this message of the new Aeon, is a message of hope, a message of celebration, for release from the chains of the slave gods, a message that all women can be freed from the bonds of restriction imposed by patriarchal taskmasters, a message that men and women may walk together as equals in all things. The message tells us that our sorrows are as but shadows. They pass and are done. There is that which remains. The journey may seem daunting, but hope is never extinguished. As the psalmist penned in the 30th Psalm, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. And it is in Liber Zodi, the book of the Hermetic Fishhook, that we are lovingly assured there is joy in the setting out, there is joy in the journey, there is joy in the goal. My name is J. Daniel Gunther, and I do wish all of you Godspeed and blessing and worship to the prophet of the lovely star. Love is the law, love under will. And with this, speech has done with us for a while.
Thank you very much. I've had a change of heart during this about taking questions. I actually, unless someone has a very pressing or salient comments or anything further, I just don't feel that it's the right thing to take questions. I hope everyone understands where I'm coming from. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody from all over the world who's joined us for this very, very special talk today. It's a subject which J. Daniel Gunther has not lectured on widely, and I feel incredibly blessed to have been here for it. And I thank you all for joining us. Love's the law, love and the will. Thank you.